everyone, and welcome to our community meetup. It is the 15th of March, 2024, and today we have a focus on CDS. So I have prepared some slides I'm going to get into right away. In the meantime, please look out for the chat, because in the chat right now, you can download all the files that I am going to be talking about, including this presentation and including the details on CDS, the Customs Declaration Service for Export. So please check out the chat right now and you can download it, all the documents relating to this presentation right away. Right, on we go. Let me share my screen. And here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Where is it? There it is. Okay, cool. Good. Okay. So welcome to the community wrap-up. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. My name is Arnie Mielken, and I am the MD of Customs Manager. And this community meetup is really an opportunity for us as customs managers, customs professionals, import-export specialists to meet up. We do this virtually to save on costs, to save on time, and it is a forum for us to discuss. One of us will bring a presentation. I have done so, and we're going to pick out one of the topic of last week's that we felt was important for us to talk about in more depth. And we're going to share relevant documentation that might be useful for others. So it's an opportunity for us to meet and for anyone really interested in customs and global trade to get together in this virtual cost-free event and discuss matters of interest. So as I said, we'll have a theme and a topic, and this week's topic is on the Customs Declaration Service of the United Kingdom. And the idea is that we together will build subject matter expertise, and then so by getting to know each other, we will have networks that we can tap into to help us and support when we get stuck or when it gets a bit too geeky and we want to check out other people's opinion. Everyone's welcomed. All we need you to do is to register. The agenda for today is like this. We're going to first start by building some subject matter expertise in customs, export control, and sanctions, and then we will switch off the recording and talk freely under Chatham rules, which means that we are not recording anything, and whatever we say here stays between us. So I want to thank our sponsors of customsmanager.info. They have two magazines that they publish, the Customs Watch and the Export Control and Sanctions Watch. And these are low-fee subscription-based updates where you, in a condensed version, in a one-pager, can get all the latest updates and changes in customs and global trade, export control and sanctions published every week. And that tells you everything that changed in the UK and changed in the EU in these areas. So do check them out, and I thank them for sponsoring this update. So today's topic is going to be on the Customs Declaration Service for Exports. And obviously, I'm going to give a quick introduction. Then I'm going to tell you what the latest updates are that I took from Customs Watch, I must admit. And then I am going to talk to you about what this is all about in case you haven't heard of CDS for exports, which I think you must have had by now. So what is it? So the Customs Declaration Service for UK exporters is the IT tool that we are going to use in the future to lodge customs declarations for exports. It is a computer system where you type in information or you upload information and then you validate it through the system, and it gives you an acceptance message, it gives you a submitted message, it gives you a customs cleared message. And this is the system we're going to use, and this is the system that HMRC is going to use to risk analyze, carry out a risk analysis, that's the way to say it, on our information to see if the shipment needs to be stopped, needs to be addressed, needs to be inspected, etc. So it's one system for us all. So we're all going to use the system. There is a current outdated system called Chief, and there is an online platform that we can use to do that. But in the future, that's no longer available to us. So we're going to all move to CDS. And that should help us also understand when we have declared goods correctly. And if we're not, then if we've declared it incorrectly, then before we get into trouble, the system shouldn't even allow us to submit it. And we should get an error message asking us to correct the information. What's the latest on CDS now? This assumes you have some prior knowledge of CDS. So for those that do have, here is the latest. Well, HMRC have recently confirmed that CDS is live for all modes of export declarations and we can now all move from Chiefs to CDS. When I speak as export from all routes, we have different routes, different ways, I guess, we can make export declarations, and they depend on a lot of factors. But in a nutshell, one of the most popular options is to make a full export declaration. Well, you type in all of the information and then you submit. There is something called a pre-shipment advice that has a different data set and has different coding requirements. So we have guides on full declaration, pre-shipment advice, IDA, and supplementary export declaration guide on these links. And again, go to the chat, download it, and you can click on the link and access these. So if you are interested in export declarations, then you're going to go there, click, and then you're going to see how you should complete this. If you're doing pre-shipment advice, which is a specific way of I guess, exporting, then you do that. If it's either you're doing entry into declarants records, then that's what you can do through CDS right now. And supplementary export declaration guide, so a two-step export process, also possible through CDS now. And again, the link is down below. And HMRC officially advises that we all move to CDS for export. So we've been training people on CDS for a while now. We have workshops, we have trainings, and we have one-to-one sessions which help businesses get ready. And when I say get ready, then we have the test environment and we launch declarations through that test environment, and then we see if they pass the CDS system, so to speak. The other point that's been noteworthy is that we are going through CDS releases. So we are on release 4.3 and we're moving into 4.4. And that's going to happen on the 23rd of March, 2024. And that will be introduced then, especially with regards to Northern Ireland. We will see quite a lot of changes, but there are also other changes, and guidance for the release CDS 4.4 has been released. And guess what is in your chat right now? So if you go there, you can download the whole shebang that was shared with us via the JCCC, and you can access this also now. And that will allow you to understand better what are the changes. And these are really nitty-gritty changes. You can see some of these here on the right, and that requires a careful analysis, because if you are one company and you make export declarations, that's fine. Then you know how you feel this. But imagine you are a customs agent such as ourselves, and you have 10, hundreds, thousands of clients that all file customs declarations differently, either in your system or, like we do it, a personalized customs declaration service where we file for you, but in close cooperation with you, right? So rather than having an automated IT pushed through data, we actually have humans that do it. So we need to understand how these systems work. So we've been working through these release 4.40 changes, and so can you now. And you can download that right now in the chat. So so that's an important update. Also, two more little bits and nuggets, so to speak, on CDS is the question on the valuation. So traditionally, we focus on customs valuation in the context of imports. HMRC would like it clarified that we need to focus on value as well as for exports for statistical reasons. So you need to declare the value of the products, and that needs to be accurate following customs valuation rules. So you must include this, otherwise you'll get an error. We don't want that. So please note 8.6, data element 8.6 needs to be completed as well. Another update is that NES is closing. So this is your national export system. This is the one we use if we don't use third-party software. So this is an online or XML message service that allows you to file export declarations without paying a third-party costs to submit declarations. That's closing, but it will be replaced. So there'll be a new system that you can use. So nobody needs to pay for third-party software. You may still want to consider that because it has additional functions that possibly the new system may not have. I haven't seen it yet, but I would hope that it has, storage functions, upload functions, etc. As we move into a UK trade single window, I would expect to see these normal support tools that help us save information, duplicate information available. Because if I have to enter every every detail of my export declarations manually, and every time repeat who is a consignee, who's consignor, who's the ORI number, without relying on standing data, saved standing data. I'm going to be there forever, and I don't want to do that. So look out for the successor to NES for sure. Here's our step-by-step guide to help you get ready for export declaration with CDS. This is what we discuss in much more detail in our training. So I just want to highlight the things that we then talk about. There are 7 steps that we've identified that might make it useful for you to consider following if you want to get ready for CDS. Really, if you are an exporter or you're an intermediate, regardless of size, you kind of need to follow these steps, I would suggest. So the first is to get your fundamentals ready. There is lots to think about in terms of customs declarations. If you're an exporter, you need a freight agency, a customs broker, and you need some information technology tools to help you fill customs declarations effectively, efficiently, and quickly. So you can get in touch and we can talk about it more. I don't even need to tell you that you need an EORI number, hopefully. Understand what's changing with CDS for exports is also important. So you want to understand what the key changes are. I have a slide on that, so that'll come, or a few slides that'll come a bit later. So just park that point for now. So step 1 is get your fundamentals ready. Step 2, understand what's changing with CDS for export. Step 3 is to make sure that we have knowledge, good awareness, and understanding of where you find what on the UK trade tariff. You need that for your importing and exporting codes and more. So look at the UK trade tariff to forming the forms, the codes, the processes that are appropriate, in this case for exporting commodities. For example, a little thing like supplementary data, information elements, if you forget them, you're not going to be able to submit your export declaration. So sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. Also, of course, your X and Y codes, your mersing codes will also be there and will be super relevant. If you don't understand what that is, come on our training and we will sort you out. So once you did the basics, the fundamentals, then please help us do this. Please understand the 8 data element groupings to complete the customs declarations. So there are 8 ones that you need to understand. They need to be completed. Every data element has to be completed in some shape or form, and you need to understand how that works. Again, our training will help you to do that. The next dates are on the website. Then it's about reading and understanding the guides that HMRC has put out for exports. And there's quite a lot to get through. So there is, to start off with, a declarant checklist for exports. That's how you transition to CDS. Is quite of a starting kind of point. We have a UK export guide for filing declarations using CDS, and there's also an updated CDS movement reference number guide. There's also a first document regarding how to complete what data element in a standard export declaration. That I haven't updated here, but if you ping me, I can send that to you too. It's a really useful guide to see that you've got all the basics covered. You say, did I complete data element 1.1? Did I complete data element 1.2? All of that kind of stuff is there, and something I can update you later on, and put that document into the folder that I have shared with you on the chat function. Then understand the CDS declaration customs clearance rules for export. So once we have the basic guides understood, we then need to get into such a more granular detail. So the links on the next page that I have here for you, and again, you can click on them when you download this presentation. They'll give you the details instructions for exports, and they tell you about procedure codes, data set, declaration completion rules, etc. All of that can only make sense if you have previously done step 5. So unless you haven't, when you have understood the concepts and the ideas and the principles of 5, would it then make any sense to go into 6? Otherwise, you're going to get lost. So first it's 5, understand the basics, fundamentals, then go into 6. And then this is where you can find extensive guidance. So if you want to know what these are, here are the key ones. There's many more documents. even like this, they will confuse you if you do not understand how this all pulls together. But basically, you need to start navigate the CDS export declaration for export, and then you move into the instruction completion details. And then there are appendix. So all of that is very confusing, and learning how to navigate is part of this part 6. And then that will help you to be able to complete your export declaration. And if anything changes, for example, the commodities change or the country of origin changes, or destination, I should say. Hopefully the country of origin doesn't change, but the country of destination of export changes, then you can modify your declaration accordingly. I mean, when I file customs declaration, and that happens still every day, because I want to stay up to date. I don't want all my colleagues to do that. I want to do some as well. Then sometimes I get to a point where I think, I have no idea what the procedure code is for this, and I myself have to look it up. And then knowing how to navigate it is really, really helpful. I'll give you an example a little later. Step-by-step guide for CDS for exports continues with step 7, and that's already the final steps. And my recommendation is to stay abreast with changes to CDS codes, guidance changes, and more. So on an almost daily basis, we have new codes, new regulations, new guidance. They're updated, they're proposed, they're implemented, especially on CDS. New codes come in, L999 code disappears. So we need to check at least once a week to see what changes are coming to CDS and how this impacts our operations. Again, if you have one product or 2 products and one regular supply chain, changes won't affect you much. But if you're, for example, a express carrier, hint, hint, then you would be doing about every transaction in every constellation for every product all the time. And unless you've automated this in a really clever way, this is going to be a very, very big challenge. In addition to this, you still need human intervention in order to understand where the exception happens and where it could go wrong. So what I obviously recommend is that you look out for Customs Watch, our watch service where we look at customs declaration changes and tell you so that you don't have to, and you can continue in your core business, and then you'll get information from us to tell you what changed, and that will help you to be more compliant. So that is our step-by-step guide for getting ready to file CDS declarations for CDS declarations. Let me finish by talking about some key modification under CDS exports when compared with Chief. Here they are all listed. I'm going to go through each of them quite quickly, so don't you worry. We're going to get to your questions and your comments in a moment. Oh, conclusion? Hopefully not. Conclusions? Hopefully not. I guess we're doing conclusions. Wait a minute, that's not how this works. Let me have a quick look. Let me look. Did I delete everything? Nah, I thought so. It's not conclusions yet. It's not time for conclusions yet. All right, so it moved in a different probably wanted conclusions, but they're not conclusions yet. So just wait a second. Let me do magic. And here we are again. Cool. So this is the slide I wanted. Key modifications under CDS exports when compared with Chief. And here are the changes. All right, so that's better. Got worried there. So what are the changes for CDS for exports? More data is required. First thing to note is we have data elements instead of boxes. I mean, everybody who's dealt with CDS should have heard that right now. And that means there's more opportunity for us to input data in codified form, in numbers and in characters. So more data required. More CDS declarations to be filled. So we need to now think about declarations categories first, B1, B2, you will see in a moment. And that allows us more scenarios under which customs declarations need to be filed. So now it does matter if you are doing a straight permanent export or whether you do, for example, outward processing. If you do permanent exports and outward processing, in the past, it was one, right? You just amended a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's it. Now, under CDS, it's one export declaration, permanently export, and then one export declaration, outward processing. You start the whole process again on a different sheet, so to speak, or form. And that's why this duplicate information previously stored. So master data is so important because I don't want to type it all in again. I want to click and the master data auto-populates if I have more declarations to fill, if that makes sense. Constructing your procedure code is a key recommendation. Now, those in Europe have never had a problem with that because we've never had we've always constructed procedure codes. 4 + 3 makes 7. In the UK, it's always been a 7-digit code that deal with it. So now we're cutting it into 2 parts, 4 and 3, and this apparently is causing major issues. The reason is now we need to calculate, compute, construct, right? So we need the first 4 based on logic, and then we need the local ones, the national ones, the 3 ones. So it's all pretty straightforward if you do a permanent export, but if you don't, you can be in big trouble because the codes are all over the place. Their matrix is supposed to help you. There are appendixes that's supposed to help you, but it's been so challenging to figure out how to construct some of these CPC codes. Give you an example. Tell me what's the CPC codes for exports followed by an ATR carnet. How? Goods came in onto an ATR carnet. They are in the UK for a while now. They're going out by ATR carnet. What's your CPC code? Not so easy now, is it? So you want to do this. Here is the example. If it came out of this ATA carnet, now it goes back out, and then what's the code? So you'd go into crazy detail here, but just to show you, you'd for a start wouldn't go with a normal traditional export. You'd go with inventory imports, customs clearance requests, guidance for completing an import declaration for the customs declaration service. So this is when you would get the goods into the country with an inventory import because you're not doing a full import because it's an ATA carnet. And then from then, you would then move to the relevant appendixes when you consider the export, knowing that it was an ATA carnet that came in and an ATA carnet that is going out. When we then move to exports, you'd go to Appendix 2, C21I, and this is where you would find your additional procedure codes. This is very tricky because you need to know that you came from inventory import and not from a traditional import. So that also is relevant for export then, because when you leave the country, you are not bringing them out of a goods that was in free circulation, if you understand. So the traditional 00, no previous procedure is not applicable in this case because this is quite a special procedure. So then you'll find yourself in Appendix 2, C21, and then from there you can find the additional procedure code 1 series where, I don't know if you can see this, but it says here 11A and 1112 deal with ATA carnet. And this is where you then start to read the details and conditions of use, and you can find that the only codes that are available with 11A are 004 and 0005, and this is then what you then look at to find out which one's possible. So you're now looking at a code that is constructed in that form, and it could accordingly be 004 11A or 005 11A, and there's your 7-digit code. So the point is, it's quite tricky. And with that goes the entire system of procedure code remains challenging. There's even a new permanent. So this is the most relevant one for those that do permanent exports. What was 1040 now stands for permanent export or dispatch of union goods or goods in free circulation and home use, which is the one we now need to use. So what was 10001 now becomes 1040.000. And it may look like a small change, but you need to make sure that this is consistently applied now. Otherwise, you wonder why it's going wrong. Nature of transaction is something else I picked up. That also needs to be declared. Hopefully, that shouldn't be a problem if you know what the details are and how you construct those, because again, they get constructed by number. Normally, 11 is the one we use, but then it all depends on what the actual nature of the transaction is. We've already talked about the high value matter for high value exports. Now, Normally, this value is required for invoices more than 100,000, but as we've heard, data element 86 is also required as HMRC advisor. So we've got to check out whether or not you can provide the customs value and then put that into the customs declaration. Carrier of goods as per the customs declarations necessary to be input, and that means the carrier's name and address as well as postcode and phone number, which should be available. Then dispatch and destination countries under the CDS is also important to note, to understand, so that, you know, from an export controls perspective, this can also be understood. That might require some planning, and you might want to know what is the dispatch and the destination country. And that might require you to converse with your clients or your recipients of the goods in order to be able to complete that. So it's something to note. And then don't forget the VAT 0 rating requirements under the customs declaration service. It's possible that permanent exports of items are in free circulation and as such might be eligible for 0 rate value added tax, but you need to supply the necessary documentation. And it's necessary to submit a claim for VAT 0 rating upon shipping in the export declaration in order to comply with CDS. But for that, you need to provide the code VATZ in order to be eligible for VAT 0 rating. So very important for many of us. Then what about licenses under the CDS system? I've already mentioned, you need to think about the X codes and the Y codes and the various regions, especially as we are in a period of enhanced sanctions. So that might need to be coded. And don't forget, there's always more to be coded than just the code. You obviously need a reason statement. The reason statement is usually foreseen and fixed. So it's not like you can write free field, but there is a language that needs to be employed. And again, you would find that in the annexes if the system doesn't automatically provide it for you. You may also need the document reference number. That could be your invoice, or actually it would most likely be your license, the license number. In some cases, you don't need that, where you code Y codes, for example, because you're saying you don't need a license. So if you don't need a license, you can't proof document. If you do need a license, X code, then most likely you have to put the license number into the box, and followed by a reason if the system requires. So there might also be status codes that you need to think about. I'm saying this way because data element 2.3 is usually the most tricky one. I find it the most tricky one. This is where if I do get errors and I do get rejected messages, I usually go there, because I know I will have forgotten a status code, I will have forgotten a reason code or something like that. So how to clear customs declaration under CDS for exports? Well, there are two considerations. Number one, understand the rules, and number one, train. In training environment or joining our training, we've got quite a hands-on training material opportunity for us to go through case studies and then understand what we need to do, and also look at errors that occur. And again, they can be anywhere. The key thing is to understand what relates to what. What is a mandatory data element, what is an optional data element, and what is an it depends data element. And we will look at all of this in our customs training. There's also a question of how to complete a data element, and that could be in three ways: either numerical or alphabetic or alphanumerical. And so these three options exist. The length is also important, and that also will determine whether you have made an error or not. Yes, so there are two ways you can submit an CDS document, export declarations. You could use the CDS software system, third-party system, or the NES web. So that's the new online declaration service that will come in. Got it wrong. The NES web is going, and the CDS export declaration online service, that's what it's called, CDS DOS, I suppose, is going to replace it. So that is the one we're going to use if we don't want third-party software if we don't want to use those. And that is the presentation on CDS for exports. I promised I will be brief, and I promised I will be hopefully delivering something that is insightful and something that allows us to develop more subject matter expertise. Next week is the week before Easter, so we have one more session. Then the following Friday, we will break for the Easter break. But next week is a session dedicated to rules of origin, and particularly proof of rules of origin under the EU-UK TCA. And the reason we do that is because this week there have been so many questions of what is a certificate of origin. There's still misconception of what it is. People are requesting it for the most interesting cases, including when it's not needed at all. So we need to understand what is the certificate of origin and what do I need it. Next week, we're going to look at what are the options for proof of origin under the EU-UK TCA, what is REX, and as a non-EU trader, do I need it? And what about de minimis, so small shipments? If you want interested in that, and you want to check it out, you want a presentation on it, you want to discuss about it, then please register on customsmanager.org events. Love to see you there. All right, that's my presentation done. We're going to go to the official reaction to what we have heard here. So before we move to a second part for a informal discussion where we switch off the recording and we just talk about it, talk about whatever we want that our community needs, some feedback from you guys on what you've heard on CDS. Does this match what you know? Have you heard anything you didn't know? Do you disagree with anything? What is your feedback on the state of readiness of businesses for CDS for exports? Please go ahead, anyone who wants.
It does seem to correspond with what I've learned so far at CDS in terms of all the guidance and everything. What I've personally found is the guidance is opaque, should I say, rather difficult to follow, and it has lots of acronyms and abbreviations and stuff, which make it quite difficult to follow through. Obviously, as you know, there are lots of complexities to CDS, and each declaration is different. And just I'm finding it challenging to date to navigate that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I myself have I'm spending quite a lot of time when somebody asks me a complicated question, such as the question we had on ATA Planet. It was a complicated system to move from A to B. Eventually, we found the solution, but it took a while to navigate through. And it also means understanding what the particular, I think you want to go on mute, Richard. What the particular details of it are, and quite often you get lost in the various points where you're looking at the matrix on constructing your procedure codes, and that doesn't help you because I was in B1 and not in the one for inventories, but I was in standard export, so obviously I couldn't find my combination. In the end, once you got it, it was all logical where you couldn't find the combination you were looking for because you were in the wrong matrix. Well, c'est la vie, right? So you spend quite a lot of time. It's quite intensive. And that's why if you're automating this and you're coding this, it needs to be correct. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Other comments? Other thoughts? Anyone? All right. Okay, good. Well, look, thank you all for joining this first part. We're going to say goodbye to the viewers on screen right now, and we hope you liked it as well. If you have any comments, you can always reach out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others that may need to see it. That allows more people to review the information on CDS and join our community meetup. And if you do join live, you do get all these documents, including the slides and the entire CDS 4.4 release information you would have gotten for as a thank you to join us here live. So it's now in your inbox, and those that are online can download it. And would love to see you live for more trainings and for more discussions and to join our network. So until that time, thank you to the online post live event audience. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording for our informal Chatham House rule discussion. How to do this?